July 15th, 2018, I want to talk about the greatest victory of my whole life. In 2009, I was diagnosed with a disease, post-orgasmic illness syndrome, POIS or POIS. And what it is there are it's a very, very rare disease, and a certain number of men, very rarely strikes women, but it strikes men, that whenever we're orgasmically sexual for any reason whatsoever, regardless of whether it's masturbation or fapping or porn or prostitution or making love to your wife, even to have children, no matter what the reason is, good or bad, healthy, unhealthy, you still feel what's called pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. You feel kind of like an alcoholic feels after a drunk. And it was just discovered in 2002, but it took 7 years before that information reached from the Netherlands, where it was discovered, and reached San Francisco, where I was living, and I was diagnosed with it. At the time, there was no protocol, there was no medicine, there was no treatment, there was no literature, and the guy that discovered it wouldn't speak to anybody, not a soul, except me. And I got to speak to him twice through emails, and then he cut off our relationship. But the bottom line is that it seemed, the best evidence, and still seems, that certain men are allergic to their own semen. And so that when you come, you just have this allergic reaction. Well, that's very, very similar to the understanding the last 83 years of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's viewed as an allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind, in the doctor's opinion, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Understanding this and having tried everything imaginable to solve this problem, since I come from Alcoholics Anonymous 38 years ago, what they do and what they taught me is, if something's causing you to feel bad, you stop doing it. It's as simple as that. You don't try to moderate, you just stop. And if you can't stop, you find a way to stop. For me, I had that problem 30 years ago, drinking, and I joined AA, stopped drinking, and it was fine. Everything's fine, it's not a problem. Haven't been a problem for 3 decades. So using that kind of thinking, I applied it to post-orgasmic illness syndrome, and it worked. Now, I gotta tell you, it took 4 years of not being sexual with myself or anyone else for any reason whatsoever. Hard mode for 4 years, and it solved the problem. And it was weird how I discovered the problem was solved. I just figured, okay, well, this is what you gotta do. This is what you gotta do. I don't know if you're film fans, but my very favorite film is Lorenzo's Oil with Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon, about a family who has a child with has an ALD, this extremely rare disease, and it ravages this poor boy, and they spend their whole lives solving this. And that was the inspiring movie that led me to find a solution for POIS, which, as I say, is my greatest achievement of my life, because I single-handedly discovered a solution to this problem. And the solution was rather obvious to me. You know, if it's causing you a problem, you stop doing it. So I just stopped doing it. And that's the reason I created Monks 6 years ago. And that's the reason I created Prayer Call 3.5 years ago, to create a climate where you could do hard mode and it would be emotionally tolerable, even enjoyable. That's the reason this was, to solve that illness. Now, how the disease actually got solved was this. I woke up one night with nocturnal emission. I came in my sleep, didn't mean to, and typically that causes the same post-orgasmic illness syndrome, but it didn't. And I thought, that's weird. And then 2 nights later, the same thing happened, and I didn't have any after effects. And I thought, oh my God. And I began to wonder, and I began to pray and meditate, because when I have a big decision, I find that meditating is a good idea. And I meditated on it for a while. I thought, maybe I've solved this problem. So I found this very unselfish girl, and I explained all this stuff that I'm explaining to you to her. And I said, look, I don't want to be in a relationship, and I'm certainly not going to masturbate. At that time, it had been over 20 years since I masturbated, 22, 23. And I wasn't going to go back and masturbate. And so I said, would you be genitally contacting with me, but not be orgasmic? And she said yes, which I thought was incredibly generous of her part. And so we did that several times. And I didn't feel bad. So I thought about it for a while, about 6-8 weeks, and prayed and meditated. And I thought, I wonder if I can be orgasmic and be okay. So I talked to a different woman. And this woman, I explained everything to her. I said, I'd like to see if I can be orgasmic and not get sick. And she agreed. And so for 2 or 3 times, we were orgasmically sexual and a very unselfish and generous, that woman should be sainted, and did that, and I didn't get sick. And I thought, oh my God. And so I once again, I prayed and meditated for several weeks, and then I found a woman who was in recovery, who was an ex-hooker. And I explained all, she hadn't been a hooker in, I think, 9 years. And I explained all this to her. I said, I'd like to do everything sexually I can possibly think of and just see if I get sick. She said, okay, I'll help you. And so she did. And for, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, we did the wildest, craziest stuff you couldn't think of. Stuff I'd never tell anybody that I did. And I'm never going to tell you either. But everything I can think of, everything. And I didn't get sick. And I thought, oh my God, I've cured it. So the cure was to have an extremely long period of hard mode and monk mode, and that solved it, and I created the cure for that illness. Now, just as an addendum, after a while, so I thanked that woman, and she went on her way. And then I started thinking, well, gosh, I'd really like to have a partner, a partner, somebody that my heart would love, and I would, I'd be fully involved with emotionally as well as sexually, and give my life and heart and mind and body, soul to her, to give me the same, as long as we don't get in our way in our relationship with God. And I found somebody. And I've been with her for 13 months now. And it's been lovely. We're engaged. We're going to get married as soon as we get back to the U.S. So the story has a really happy ending. But it might not have turned out that way. I might not have had a partner. And any of that might not have happened. It all happened, and I'm truly grateful. But what I want to say is there is a solution to sexual disorder. There is a solution. And the smartest thing I ever heard, this is one of the animals they have here in Taipei. God knows what it is. The smartest thing I ever heard was this. Whatever problem you've got, it doesn't matter what it is. Just keep coming back. Just keep coming back. As long as you come back, you will win eventually. Eventually. It may take longer than you thought. You may have to do more things than you thought. You may have to be more honest than you planned to be, and you may have to develop a whole new quality called humility, which means being teachable. But if you keep coming back, you can get well. That's the message of hope I want to give to all of you. Thanks.